Hey everybody, buckle up because this episode is going to be a big one. We're covering days 18, 19 and 20 of Trouble's restoration. In this video, we're going to be removing the front part of Trouble's wiring loom and her fuse box. Now you might think it can't take that long to pull a few wires. Well, 3 days. It took 3 days to remove the front part of Trouble's wiring loom. It got stuck and I really didn't want to have to cut it because that would have been a very expensive decision. Let's get into the nitty gritty of what went down, starting with a quick walk around Trouble so you can see where we're at.
Okay, so this is Trouble in her current state. Here's the bonnet, all scraped out.
Just so you don't feel like you've missed out on any of this restoration, here's a quick time lapse of me scraping out underneath some of the bonnet.
Need to try and get this pipe off here so I can remove that. Fuses are all still in. This is the front loom that I'm trying to remove, but it's trapped in here, so I actually can't get this out. The last thing I really want to do is cut that there. So yeah, that's gonna probably take some time. Try and work out how to get rid of that. Under this wheel arch, scraping away, clear all of the stuff under there. Took some time. The wing mirrors are off. The inside, that was pretty much stripped quite some time ago now. But yeah, so in there, all I've got to do is take steering column off, the wheel and a pedal box. But I'll do that when I take the front running gear off. And then this wheel arch has all been scraped out. I just wouldn't look too closely under there unless you want some nightmares. Yeah, and then the engine bay, we dropped the engine a couple of weeks ago now, and that's all scraped out, ready for us to drop off the rear running gear, which again, it's not going to take too long. I think it's one bolt there, another one over there. I think there's a front gearbox mount, and then top shock. And I'll take that radius arm off, and then the whole lot, I believe, should just drop off. So yeah, that's not going to take too long either. But yes, this is Trouble. This is where she's at. We've made quite a lot of progress. Right, let's get going with today.
That's enough of a walk around. Let's get into this video. Removing the front wiring loom. As you might be able to tell, there are quite a few wires I need to carefully thread back through Trouble's bodywork to get this loom out. Why are there so many wires and what do they all do? Well, you might remember that under each front wing, Trouble had a fog lamp, an indicator, a horn and her headlight. These are all powered from Trouble's battery, and each of them has its own power supply with a wire feeding it. Without getting too specific, I'll try and explain the basics of car electronics. Here goes. So each electrical component has two connections, a positive known as a live or a feed, and the second connection is a ground, or also known as a earth return or negative. The live wire is connected to the battery's positive terminal and usually has a switch and a fuse somewhere in the wire upstream of the component it powers. The earth is connected to the battery's negative terminal. Most electrical components which are mounted directly onto a car's body don't actually have an earth wire though. This is because the negative terminal of the battery is also connected to the car's body. So the component and battery are connected, but through the body, not with a wire. Components which aren't mounted to the body, or components that need a better earth, do have an earth wire, but this wire typically just bridges the component to the body somewhere. Like Trouble's horns, it doesn't actually go all the way back to the battery. I hope that kind of made sense. It pretty much just boils down to a pretty simple battery light bulb type circuit, but with a switch and a fuse in there too. You might be wondering why a single wire couldn't go to each wheel arch and power these things. Keeping it simple, the primary reason is because using a single wire would make it very difficult to switch, as in like turn on and off these components individually, especially with how they're earthed. You'd be going down the road like some kind of broken police car with the horn on non-stop, the indicators flashing, and both the fog light and headlights on. All in all, not a great look. Another reason this isn't done is because different components have different power ratings and require different current supplies. The more current a wire has to carry, the thicker it needs to be. That's why the wire feeding headlights is much thicker than the wire that feeds the indicators. This is the starter motor wire. It has a huge power rating. Look how thick and chunky that one is. Unfortunately, it has been chopped, and it probably comes as no surprise that the thicker the wire, the more expensive it is. I haven't even looked at how much it's going to cost to replace that. I hope that's briefly explained why there are so many wires here. Now let's get on with trying to get them out. I started with trying to remove the loom, which came up and out of Trouble's right headlight bowl. This section of loom comes through the inner wheel arch, through a tube in the fender support bracket, and then up and out of the headlamp bowl. Unfortunately, it had been messed around a bit. It correctly had a feed to power the left indicator, which came out rather painlessly, but the feed to power the headlight had all sorts of extra wires added. They weren't connected to anything, so I have no idea what they did, but I do know is they made getting the loom out of the headlight bolt a complete nightmare. No matter how much I pushed and tugged, I couldn't get the loom through the tight hole in the headlamp bolt with all of these additional connectors. It was stuck, so naturally I went and got my dad to help. No amount of to me, to you would do it.
Put it back, and then put it back. Okay. Put some WD down there.
So naturally we decided to try some WD-40. A lot of WD-40 and more me to you later, and we still couldn't get the loom moving nicely through the tube. We decided that one or more of those bullet connectors on the ends of the wires must have been put on once the loom had been installed.
You're going to struggle to get it all around that curve with those bullets on. I think we'll take them all off. Okay.
Not pretty, but nothing else was working for us. Plus, there's plenty of spare wire to crimp new connectors on the end. Anyway, excuses aside, the loom is out.
I think you got that out with those on.
Next, it was time to tackle the section of loom which comes up and out of Trouble's left headlight bowl. For full disclosure, I have already tried to remove this, hence I know it's going to be a bit. I decided to squirt it with WD-40 before even starting my second attempt at getting it free. With my fingers crossed and the WD-40 hopefully doing its job, I tried to pull the loom through again.
No, is the pipe clear? It doesn't look like it's got a dent in it, I think.
Nothing. The loom would not budge on the inside of the wing. It was as if the movement that I was getting at the headlamp bowl end was just it stretching. Not great news.
If I just try and show you what's going on here. The last part of this loom basically goes through the wing and feeds the headlamp. And where it goes is through this fender support strut or wing support strut, so this should be welded on. It should be welded onto the wing here to give this more support, but it's not. But this car has had a ding in the front wing at some point, and it's bent this because this should be connected to the bottom of the headlamp bowl, and it's not, and it's all been kind of skewed, and basically the loom is trapped inside this tube. And I think what's happened is because this has become separated over time, water and grime has got down this tube and maybe started corroding it from the inside and has now trapped the wire. I really don't want to have to cut the wire off from the inside of the wing here. So what I'm thinking of maybe doing is getting a angle grinder and grinding this tube down so that I can maybe just free it off from the wire. I have to see, I've been putting loads of WD-40 down it, see if I can try and get some kind of lubrication in there, but it's not been working too well. Anyway, we'll get that out today for sure, even if it's the only thing I get done. So in our pursuit to try and get this headlamp loom out of this wing strut, as I mentioned earlier, I thought I would just grind through the top of this tube and then take the loom out. But after speaking with my dad, he thought there was a risk with that of the loom maybe getting too hot. Yeah, just in general, not a great idea. And what he thought what we should try doing is with a junior hacksaw, cutting through the tube. So we've started here and we've cut through, and what we have found is that the loom is actually free from here to here. So where it's getting trapped is in this section down here. So our next cut is going to be in here. What we're then going to do is pull this down so that we can get this top tube off, and then we're going to cut through here to leave this little bend, and then we're going to work the bend off the loom and then hopefully be able to pull the loom through this last bit. So we're going to carry on cutting through here carefully, because once it's through the tube you don't want to then cut through the loom, otherwise it defeats the object of what we're doing. We're through this top one and we've cut this bend off this fender support here, which has allowed us to get the loom out of the headlamp bowl and also rotate this round so we can try and see what's going on. And the loom actually isn't stuck in any of the bend, that moves freely, and it also moves freely in this tube. What we've found is, if I turn this round, this pipe that I've cut off at the top is absolutely stuffed with mud. It is just, there you go, full of mud. So what I've got is a little scribe, a very small spike, and I'm going to just work my way down here. If it will fall out. Hang on. So if I get this in here.
Was that because it was broken from the bottom of the bowl?
Yeah, and I guess
It's gone in for
the wheels just thrown shit at it for the last however many years. Oh, hello. Look at that. That was all the mud. And now, okay, let's take this out here.
Try and pull the little double one out first.
Oh, it's all lubed up.
Oh.
Yes. All of the insulation sleeving is. What's going on here? 1, 2 is off. So now this one should come off. Oh, God. Hurting my hands. That's off. Now for the bit we've all been waiting for. Let's go from the inside of the car. This has only taken us nearly 2 days to remove. Oh, it's still stuck. Kidding. No. Yep.
I'm trying to do this one-handed. Heave! Is it caught on the end of the hole?
No. It's just... Oh, there's just so much rust in there. Yeah, keep going. Maybe pull it more my way. There's loads of shit coming out. There we go. Just needed to free off the hole. You got the loom?
Yeah, I got my hand stuck.
Oh, oh god. Is it going to come out? Look.
Yeah.
It's out.
There you go.
Whee. Look at that. Spaghetti. Mega.
Wunderbar. What's it?
Now the front loom has finally been released from its routings, the last thing I need to do is disconnect all the individual wires that make up this front loom from the fuse box. The fuse box is this very simple looking jungle of wires. For those who don't know, the purpose of a fuse box on a car, and any other electrical equipment to be honest, is to protect the electrical equipment, such as your lights and horn etc. on your car, and your toaster in your house, from surges of current which could damage the component, or worse, cause a fire. Not cool. Actually, quite hot. To understand how they work, it's useful to know that current flowing through a wire generates heat and causes a wire to heat up. The more current that flows, the hotter the wire gets. Fuses are designed around this feature, for want of a better word. They're made from a small metal strip of wire which will melt at certain currents. They're put in line, also known as in series in electrical terms, but yeah, in line in an electrical circuit, upstream, so to speak, of the electrical component the wire feeds. This way, if for whatever reason the current in the circuit exceeds the fuse's maximum current rating, the heat from the flow of current melts the wire, causing the circuit to break and the current to stop flowing, protecting the rest of the circuit. It's as simple as that. It's better for a spike in current to break a relatively inexpensive fuse than it is to frazzle the particular piece of electrical equipment, or worse, cause a fire from wires getting excessively hot. So that's what this bank of fuses is doing. Some of these fuses have different ratings to others. I'm not sure for certain, but I would take a good guess that the colour of those fuses helps identify what their rating is. So you could imagine that the red ones are rated to say, I don't know, 5 amps or 15 amps, and maybe the white ones are rated to 30 amps. Yeah, I don't know. That's just me having a good guess.
Off. 2. Can't get this one out there.
What, the wire? Well, it's too big.
It's pretty squeezy. I don't know how they got this in there.
I think all the relays would have been off first.
Where's that black one go? Black one goes into a Loom 2. Maybe I should take all the relays off. Let's see what happens. This red and white one goes into this loom. This red and white one also goes into this loom. This one's thin. So that thin one was in the bottom one, and the thick one was in the top one.
To give me some more chance of getting all these wires back in the same position, I took my time undoing all these clamping screws and was carefully making a note of the colour of each wire and where it was routed and connected.
Should be able to now take these banks of fuses off. Big screwdriver.
I decided to follow my dad's instructions and take the bank of relays above the fuse box up. These are those cream, yellow and black things. Without going into too much detail, A relay is basically a type of secondary switch which allows you to turn on and off a high current circuit using a low current circuit. Just think of them as another switch.
There's a brown earth strap on this one.
With the 3 relays off, I now had better access to the top side of the fuse box and could try again to remove that chunky red wire. You can really see the difference in wire thickness when comparing this wire to some of the other tiddlers.
I guess we just got to loosen all those bottom ones.
Okay, with the top side of the fuse bank completely disconnected, I just had to do the same with the lower side, and then the front loom that I've been trying to remove for days will finally be free.
White and black, or maybe just white. Oh, and then there's also blue and white in there as well. So now we just need to take these big screws off. This one. And my fuse block will come off. Wow, nice. Here she is. Oh, look, and this will come off. So I get the first half of my loom out. How exciting. If I can work out how these work. It's like a bullet connector. So what we have here is a black and green going into a black and green. Makes sense. And a black and white going into a black and white. Again, makes sense. Now, we have the first half of my loom removed. Whee! I'm so excited. Here's the first bit of my loom. Woo! Off. Spaghetti junction. Nice one, guys. Cool beans.
We're not quite done with removing the front part of Trouble's wiring loom, but to keep a cap on the length on this video, I've decided to split the video up into 2 parts. So that is the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and found learning, albeit at a very basic level, about how car electronics work interesting. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with part 2. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it.
And she's found something. What have you found?
A little nest.
It's a little nest.
We got to keep it.
Look, what's in my seal? In there. Decided that the seal was a nice place to make a house. Mr. Mouse. I wonder if he's still in there. Hello.
And if he jumped out. Shit, isn't it? Jim said he'd done it.
Yeah. My dad said he'd done this one. By done, I think he might have looked at it.
Oh, I've fallen asleep.
Right. Nice. I think it's time to call it a day.